Fresh, fine. So our answers are going to be slightly different because when you dehydrate something, it affects the quality, and also the water part has gone, and the water behaves energetically, and in the body it behaves differently. So what I've got is a dried one as well. I've been drinking the fresh one all week. And did you guys make the vinegar as well? That wasn't so much for us to use today, but it's just to get you guys to do it because of the extraction and healing. Okay. So can we all hold our glasses up? It'd be nice to have the screens on for people who want to, but look at the colour. Because that tells us a lot already. You're straining it in the colour, you can't see it. In future, when we do sessions, if people can do it in glasses, it's really useful. Just as a, I mean, it's nice holding it at the window, but mine actually looks like urine, I think. I don't know why, but it's not a urine sample, it's nettles. And then before we even sip it, which someone's sipping, Colette, is terrible. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to smell it. Oh, the first thing we do actually is we say thank you to Nettle for, you know, being here and sort of giving yourself to us. Let's thank it. And we're smelling it. And what do we smell? Can we put it in the comments, please? Grassy. And then what I'm doing is my funny picture that I do every week, and I'm going to write all the comments on the side. I find it really useful when I'm doing a session like this. I don't know if you could see it all, but it's a person, and I've done fingers so we can, and I do little boxes in the corners for constituents and energetics as well. So we're going to, as we write it, and then I'm going to write the words that come up around it. So it's a kind of way of kind of mapping it. So, and it's good for revision. So slightly floral, grassy. Anything else? Slightly floral. I'm writing these all down, and then I can take a photo of it and send it to you. Floral. Young grass. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. I just want to say about the smell. Also think about the things we can't smell. I know that sounds weird, but you know, like if you're smelling calendula or lavender or something, you can smell, you know, volatile oils. So we can't smell those. So that tells us something as well. And then also, I think we're ready to sip it like we're fine wine drinkers. And we're just going to put it in our mouth and not swallow and see the relationship between the plant and our mucous membrane. What's people's instant reactions to that? You're welcome to go off mute and just say it. Anyone, come on, guys. What are you tasting? Earthy? Yeah. Mine's quite spinachy, a bit like the taste of steamed spinach.
I was going to say mine's a bit cabbagey. It tastes like vegetables. You can taste that there's more.
Yeah, mine does as well.
Yeah, mine does too. Very vegetable. Yeah, quite earthy, vegetable-y.
Demulgent.
Green.
Demulsion, I get that as well. It's got a very silky, smooth, lining-y coating taste. I've got that definitely. In fact, I was quite surprised how much I feel it. There's a film covering the mouth mucosa. Yeah, there is, for me as well. What's actually really interesting, I mean, I'll tell you after we've done this, but I've been drinking it all morning, and I can tell you it's not the herb I need. Silky. Yeah. Yeah. Any energetics? Can anyone feel anything like?
It definitely feels soothing.
Yeah.
I think I stung my mouth a little bit, but I think that's because I had a bit in there still.
Last night I'm just like equipped this week, and last night I was straining out the vinegar, and normally I do it in a cloth. Normally I wear gloves, and I just stuck my hands in the nettle vinegar and sort of had like a delayed response, and it was just stinging my hands, and I didn't even respond. I just carried on squeezing it, and it was just like getting worse and worse. But then it went really fast. But yeah, it's surprising. Even in vinegar for 2 weeks, it was actually quite strong. So it shows that the nettles didn't actually break down the stings. So that taught me something about extraction. Silky.
Clean. I get a really clean taste from it, whatever that means.
Yeah, I do as well. Okay, energetically, do you feel it going anywhere in your body? It doesn't matter if you don't, but do you feel anything?
Warmth in the throat.
Okay. How is anyone drunk the fresh compared to the dry? Has anyone compared it? No? Okay, so what I was just going to say is just incidentally that I've been drinking this probably since 10 this morning continuously. So I've peed about 10 times. That tells you a lot. And also my mouth, I don't know why I did it, but my mouth is so dry, I can barely talk. So it's been very, very drying to me personally with my constitution. And that's actually not what I need. I feel like I'm a bit of a dried up spoon anyway. So it's made me more wrinkly and dried in my mouth. My lips have puckered and they feel tight. So that's quite interesting. You know, but that's after like probably eight glasses of it. You know, normally people do not have that many. Okay, so we're going to start. So can we share the slide, please? I'm not possibly going to be able to share everything I've learned today in this hour and a half. So we'll just see what happens and what comes out.
Can I just ask a question, Claudia?
Yeah, sure.
Are we recording this event? Because I just thought it would be just such a cool thing to have on record. And
are we, Caro?
Yeah, I've started recording it. Thanks for the reminder.
Excellent.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to be a busybody.
No, it's good. I'm just trying to work out how to enter the slideshow because I'm feeling a bit.
So go to slideshow. Which is 1, 2, 3.
That one.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. So just a tip for all herbalists: when in doubt, give nettles. Nicholas Culpepper said nettles are so well known that they hardly need any description. And I think he also mentioned about, you know, you could even notice them at night because basically you'll get stung. So there are about, of the Urticaceae family, there's about 54 genera and 2,600 species. It exists globally, and it has simple serrated cordate leaves, as you can see. And when I look at nettles, I always see a heart shape. And the one we're talking about today is Urtica how would you say it? Dioica? How do you say it? How do you guys say it? Urtica dioica. But there's other, yeah, and there's other varieties here, but we're focusing on that one. And dioecious means it means 2 houses in Latin, and that means it's got a male and a female plant. And it's, when we collect the seeds, it's of the female plant. And it is I think it's a perennial. I have to check that actually. And the Urtica urens is an annual. And if something's an annual, it means it completes its whole life cycle in 1 year. And if it's perennial, it may take a few years. So ancient European names for nettle include alcaphy, acanthum. In French, it's ortie. In Arabic, it's huriak. Does anyone know any other names for nettles?
Yep, cansanção in Brazil.
Called?
Cansanção.
Spell that. I'm going to put it on.
C-A-N.
Yeah.
Hang on. S-A-N.
Yeah.
C with a little snake under it.
Yeah.
A with a little snake on top of it, and O.
Okay. Okay, cool. And it's abundant, cheap. It's a nutrient. It's a herb. It's a food, and it's used for both humans and in veterinary medicine. It was used in World War II for those with profuse blood loss, and it was also used for camouflage and netting as a fiber. Brennnessel. What does that? Do you know what that means? Brennnessel. What does Bren mean?
No, it's just the name of the herb.
Yeah, I know, but I was just thinking, what is there a translation?
No, I don't think so. Oh, well, actually there is, because bren means like burning, and if you touch it, it's like stinging, burning.
Excellent. Yeah. So nettle is the archetypal, alkalizer and cleanser. And when we talk about alkalinity, a lot of the waste products from our body become acidic waste. And it's a chlorophyll-rich plant that acts as a buffer to transport and excrete nitrogenous waste metabolites. Urti means to burn, and dioica means two houses. So if you see a dioecious plant, it means it has a male and a female. I always think of cannabis for some reason, because they have a male and a female. I think it's because when I was a teenager, I was obsessed with growing cannabis plants, and it was always like, oh, is it a female plant? Is it a male plant? Urtica urens is both male and female. I like that about plants, that they kind of break conformity on kind of, binary biology. So next slide, please. Okay, so today we're going to look at morphology. This is what I want to do with all the plants. So at the end, I can test you on all of these things. So we want to know morphology. Back, please. We want to know the shape. It's got heart-shaped leaves. We're going to go into this more. The character, the botany. We want to know location, climate, its cultural legacy. This is important for all plants. We want to know its pharmacology and empirical experience in its cultural use, its energetics, its taste, its temperature, and its direction in the body. Its affinity for body organs, tissues. We want to know its affinity with astrology. And when I say ages, that's ages of people. There's some herbs that are really good for older people, really good for young people, or even like at different stages of pregnancy. And then we want to know what its sort of esoteric individuality is and its character. And then also how it's used in different cultures. So let's move on. Okay, so we're having a look here. I thought it was very necessary to show you the flowers, the seeds. I think that's a nettle powder of the root, I think. Let me just have a look in the chat. I've seen something. Let me just put that in the corner so I can actually see it. Yeah. Okay, so we'll look at another picture. Can we actually go back to the first picture, please, at the very beginning? Sorry, Cara, I'm being a bit difficult. Okay, so can you see the top left is a picture of the male stamen? Can you see it? And it looks a bit like a hot cross bun. I want you to see the differences, because people often pick parts of the flower thinking it's the seeds when it's not. And the female flowers, we can go back to that slide again. Please, Caro. Yeah, the female flowers are there on the right. And they're actually quite an exciting plant when the pollen is popping to actually sit and watch, because you can see the little puffs. It's a bit like when puffball mushrooms explode their kind of dust. You can actually see that happen. Yeah, so in medicine, it's really important to collect the female seed. And that's the relevant bit of the plant that's used in medicine. For medicine, we use the leaf, we use the seed, we use the root, and they all have their own affinities, which is really quite interesting. And there's huge variations in the property of nettles according to location, the time of year, the weather, the climate, the soil, the local plants around it, the state of the soil. And another thing to really note, and it's good and bad, is that nettles can be put down to clean up a toxic land, but because of that, they can absorb toxicity and they metal accumulate. So if you've got really clean, nice nettles, that's actually is a benefit for us in our bodies, because as on the land, so in our bodies. And yeah, it's really important to note that these variations can be quite significant. And because they are so mineral rich and attract what's around them, I think nettles by the sea would have higher iodine, let's say, than nettles in the city. So even the location, it's very, when you're buying nettles, let's say, if you're not picking it, it's it would be pertinent to ask where it was grown and when it was grown. And you know, it's good to know that about all plants, really. And also for ethical reasons, it's good to know where it came from. And then this will go back to the spirituality and energetics of the plant, but it's a protective plant, and herbs that are very vulnerable will grow around nettles, so the nettle protects it. And that's like a metaphysical property that maybe you could give it to people that protect other people. So like dead nettles will often grow around it. And also it's a metaphor for boundaries and prickliness. In companion planting, it's commonly grown next to tomatoes and mints, and it raises the essential oil content up to 20 to 40% richer than without it growing with them. It's used as a black fly deterrent, and it's used to make fertilizer for the ground. So when, as herbalists, we can actually give herbal medicines to our own plants. And it's a good indicator of a nitrogen-rich soil. So if you look at an area and you know that it's a really rich soil, it's a harbinger of spring. Like right now, you know, you're seeing them coming up, you know, spring has sprung. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to say just about the land that it grows on. It likes to grow on disturbed land, and that to me shows tenacity. So I'm just looking at the new message. Yeah, good next to black currants too, high yields of berries. Interesting. Okay, next slide, please. Here's the root. The reason I wanted to just show you a picture of the root, because we didn't see it in the other pictures, and that actually when we want root, we want it, I'd want it even a bit more vibrant than that. It's surprisingly quite yellow when it's fresh, and when you dry it out, it fades a bit, but you don't want old root. You use dried root a lot, but you don't want it sort of old because of the substances and the oils in it that can go rancid. And we'll talk about extraction of root as well. Next slide, please. Ooh, I need to just.
No. No.
Hello? Okay, so when I say it's native to Europe, Asia, Turtle Island, etc., sometimes it's naturalized. Nettle means needle, and urtica means to burn, and I think that needs no explanation. It's considered a weed by many, but by herbalists, it's our friend. And like I said, if in doubt, give nettles. It's used for textiles, and the actual stings of the nettle are called trichomes. We'll go into trichomes a bit afterwards. And I would like you all to consider nettle as a food, not just a herbal prescriptive remedy. And traditionally in Europe, it is a food. You know, it's not just a herbal remedy. And it's really important to harvest it in season. That's when it's safe, because it accumulates and it changes chemically over the years, I'm quite staunched about collecting it at this time of year in an ethical way to leave enough to turn into the next generation. But also I like to pick it for the year over the next sort of 2 months. Later in the year, it creates things called cystoliths and opals and plant opals. And I think that we have very hard water in this country, and we really don't want things that can create stones in our body. Let's have a look. What's this message say? Yes, it's a delicacy. It is a delicacy. What's quite funny is when I do quite radical herb stuff, and I talk about class and herbs, and in the Victorian period it was considered a pauper's food, and snobby people didn't want to have nettles because they considered it sort of below them, which I think is quite funny. Yeah, it's a food medicine, and in season it's incredibly safe, but as a rule probably not drinking more than 3 or 4 cups a day, just because of its accumulation of metals and crystallizing substances. But when they're babies now, you know, I think it's absolutely fine. It's a nutritive, it's used for anemia, it's used for luscious hair, it's used for prostate glands, it's used for allergy. I've written hair twice, and it's used for robustness. So even if you learn that, that's a lot, and all parts are used. Next slide, please. Okay, so there's a electron microscope picture of the trichome. I just thought these were so pretty. These are pictures of, you know, yarn and textiles made of nettles, and there's kind of a resurgence with this kind of stuff, especially during the pandemic. And what I liked about these pictures is that they're made from nettles and they're dyed by plants. So that one's dyed with indigo, the one in the middle, and that's nettle shawls, which I saw on Etsy. And yeah, I wanted to say that, yeah, at the end of the year, they accumulate with calcium carbonate, and they make these things called plant opals. And, you know, it's something you don't really want to be drinking, especially if you're prone to things like gout or arthritis, you're older. It's not something we really want to accumulate in our bodies. But the irony is nettles at this time of year is a remedy to flush out gravel and gritty bits. Next slide, please. Okay, so I just wanted to, you know, not have a Eurocentric kind of view of nettles. And this is Kwaku Anansi from the Tales in the Caribbean, who's a spider, and one of his tasks in one of the stories is to get through nettles, and he succeeds at that. And let me find out what this person's name is. This is Milarepa from Tibet, who didn't eat whilst meditating and only lived on nettle, and lived till 83 years old. So the sort of legend goes that he never lived on anything else but nettles. And he's green because of it. And his hair was green apparently as well. I'm just reading the messages. Orto in Italians means allotment or area you grow vegetables. That's really interesting. So the Italian word ortici, is it? Seems to have associations for Italian speakers as food growing. We have many recipes with nettles, including pasta and pasta sauces. That's lovely. Very nice. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, that's come up in white. Okay, that's not good. Okay, it's mentioned in the 9 Herbs Charm, which was written around the 10th century, and it was used as a protection against elf shot, which was mysterious, you know, ailments like pains or afflictions in humans that didn't seem to have a reason, and for protection against venom. I always wonder when I read these old books, was the 10th century Britain covered in snakes or spiders? Because they always talk about biting of venom, but like these days I don't really see many people getting bitten other than insects in the summer. But I just put it in here because it's a really long kind of like an incantation that you say over the herbal remedy with kind of devotion to the plant, and sort of also telling its nature, the way it works. It's kind of praising the plant, and also it's a bit alchemical. They add ash and fermented apples and bits of soap in it, and I just found it kind of utterly fascinating aspect of herbal medicine I hadn't really seen in this country. Another thing that I found out today that I found kind of annoying and kind of interesting was there's something called the Berlin papyri, which is actually a stolen papyrus from Saqqara in Egypt. It's an ancient Egyptian papyrus, and in this papyrus were ancient ways of determining fertility and contraception, and within that, nettle is one of the remedies, and I thought that was really, really interesting. In a herbal by someone called Bock, he said, our doctors are so ashamed of fetching such a common weed behind the fences to include their formulas that even both cooking and in medicine, it has might impressive effects. There's something called St. Columbus broth, and it was also used as meat tenderization by ancient people. It's eaten a lot in the Basque region of Spain, and or not Spain. It's cooked in omelettes, it's cooked in pestos and Italian food. And the other thing to mention is that rarely some people actually do still get a histamine reaction from it if it's not cooked down, or it's, you know, still a bit stingy. The leaves are used to coagulate milk to make cheese. And I didn't put a picture on today, but I saw an amazing picture on Facebook today of someone's nettle cheese. Yeah. In Celtic folklore, thick stands of nettles indicate that there are fairy dwellers close by, or that the sting of the nettle will protect you from fairy mischief or other forms of sorcery. In France, if you hold yarrow and nettle together, it will allay fear. It was used as an antidote to mercury poisoning, hemlock, henbane, mushrooms, serpents, and scorpions. Next slide, please. Oh, that is a part of the 9 charms. I just gave you a little bit if you wanted to have a look at it. It goes on and on and on, like for about 20 minutes if you read it. Next one, please. Okay. I think I actually, okay, that's fine. Okay, let's get this. So let's try and do some revision while we go through this. So as I said before, the constituents in the plant are variable. And this is why biodynamic medicine and astrophytology are very, very relevant, because it has a time of year, a day of the week, and an earth hour that you pick it, you make it, etc. This is not an astro session, so I'll touch on it later, but it's something that just it enhances its medicine if you pick it at its devoted days and times. It contains tannins, and I'm going to go into all these words just very quickly, so it's like revision for you. So tannins are astringent polyphenols. They bind and precipitate proteins, and they bind and precipitate amino acids and alkaloids. So that will affect their medicine and what they're extracted in. It also affects their the way they work in the body. And that's partly why nettle is good at attracting stuff we don't want in our body and we pee it out. It has volatile compounds, these ones aren't smelly ones as such. I mean, they're more present in the seed when you pick it. I'm an avid nettle seed picker, and I've got a way of picking them without stinging myself, and I eat them throughout the season, and they're so greasy and I absolutely love them. They contain fatty acids. So fatty acids are long chains of hydrocarbons. They contain polysaccharides, which are long chains of single sugars. And if those single sugars, let's say if you think of something like that, as 2D, is a long chain. If the simple sugars go like that, they actually signal our immune system. It contains vitamins, which are chemicals which are vital for our health and well-being, and without it we are ill, and they're present in very small amounts in the plants, and we only need small amounts for our health. Minerals are crystalline products that are often taken out of mines, and that's why they're called minerals. And then I also wanted to mention that the trichomes contain their own sort of, you know, unique chemicals of histamine, formic acid, serotonin, that create a local immune and sort of fiery response. The plant contains quite significant amount of protein, which is amino acids. I've read some places that it contains complete amino acids, but I'm not sure if that's true. And the lectins that are in the plant are also a protein. Lectins are kind of known as anti-nutrients, but they also have, you know, pharmacological effects such as inducing apoptosis in cancer cells. And one of the sterols in the root in the seeds.
I'm not hearing anything.
You can't hear anything? Hello? Is someone having a difficulty with the sound?
No, we can all, I can hear you all. I can hear everybody. I think someone's having a conversation with somebody else or something.
Okay. So it also contains pigments such as terpenes, chlorophyll. And I mean, I think all of you need to know just the purpose of chlorophyll, because most plants are very green, or if plants are very red, you know, they've got, you know, anthocyanins. And at the very least, you need to be able to talk around these chemicals because it can get you marks for exams and things. Okay, next slide, please. Let me just adjust it so I can see the slide and not. How do I do it? Aha, let me minimize myself. That's better. Okay, so the trichomes contain histamine, choline, acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter, serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter, leukotrienes, silica. They're the kind of really significant ones. I've listed the other ones. The relevance of histamine is interesting because the way it acts upon the body is different than when mast cells degranulate it. And somehow, I think it's, you know, obviously it's the entourage effect of all the chemicals in nettles, that it actually has an antihistaminic effect and anti-allergy effect. And we, you know, it's not known. It's fine that we don't know. The fact is we know it does work. But what I wanted to say is that histamine in the stomach is actually acts like a sort of signal chemical. And it has actually a dulling down effect on inflammatory conditions, as opposed to what you would think of. And I've worked with a few people with chronic allergies who are very, very scared of nettles because of their associations with it. And they're so inflamed and so allergenic that they feel quite frightened of taking nettles. Another significant aspect of the plant that it is so rich in minerals and is a food. In fact, it's so rich and such a wonderful kind of superfood that if it didn't have the trichomes, it would probably be extinct because everything would have eaten it. So it contains silica, which is an important mineral for making structure of hair and nails. And it's a very nutritive herb, and it's something I would consider for anyone. Well, all of us are kind of deficient in so many things, living in late stage capitalism with the food systems being the way they are. But it's something I would consider as a tonic to take for all of us, really. And a way of addressing some of our mineral issues at this time of year without having to sort of supplement alone. Next slide, please. Okay, so this bit's a bit bitty because I kind of wrote it by looking at different studies and sort of just put little bits into the constituents. Remember that anything I say, that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So when we talk about lignans or polysaccharides or isolectins or whatever it is, it's working in the entirety of that particular plant at that particular time. And we're just getting a gist of the things that nettle is capable of doing in our bodies. So it contains polysaccharides that are mostly present in the rhizome. The rhizome is like a root structure that in the colonies of nettles, they actually communicate with each other. So if one of us is walking along and we pick some, that message will go throughout all of the rhizomes and they communicate to each other saying, hang on, over there, someone's picked some. And also I think that the rhizomes possibly connect to the other plants and talk to each other. The polysaccharides in the root are immunostimulating, and particular studies have shown that they stimulate tumor necrosis factor and T lymphocyte activity. You guys can look it up if you want to know the details of that, because T lymphocyte stimulation is good and bad in different conditions, but its net effect in the plant is that it's anti-inflammatory, and the polysaccharides extract particularly well in water and oil extracts. So if you're wanting to get the polysaccharides out, you use the water and oil extracts. It's got chemicals called lignans, which are the woody substances, and the lignans, I'm not going to go into all these long words, but that they're the type of lignans that are there. You can go into it. The lignans affect binding with 5-alpha dihydrotestosterone and sex hormone binding globulin receptors. We're going to go into it more when we talk about prostates. Next slide, please. How is everyone, by the way? Is this okay? The rate I'm going?
Great.
Good. Okay. So tannins, flavonoids, and caffeic acid derivatives. I put this in. Oh, okay, that's fine. I put this in together as a slide because they're all sort of part of the same shikimic acid pathway, and they all sort of break off from each other and they have things in common. And they're things that are very sort of buzzwordy for people like, you know, I don't know, alternative naturopaths take these things out in America and make pills out of these single, you know, these single isolates and say that they're, you know, antioxidants and what have you, but don't put them in the entirety of the plant. So it contains these tannins, and as I've said, and I'm going to reiterate it again just so we learn it, that tannins bind structures together, and the tannins of nettles are very good for hemorrhage anywhere in the body. So when we think of hemorrhage in the body, we can start with top, so we can think about the nose. If you've got nosebleeds, repetitive nosebleeds, it's very good. Heavy periods, flooding, like profuse bleeding, it's very good for actually slowing down the profuse bleeding because of the tannins, but it's also not nourishing for the blood. It builds blood, so it's an amazing remedy. It's good for postpartum hemorrhage, and it can be made bashed up with a mortar and pestle for wounds. And Culpeper talks about it a lot. And just the sort of random thing I thought I'd tell you about as well is that that there are different times of the lunar cycle where bleeding happens more. So more people have hemorrhages at different times of the cycle. It's a bit like women's bleeding happens at particular times of the lunar cycle. And in traditions, people are more likely to bleed at different parts. I think it's the new moon. Okay, just trying to think. And then I've just written here, hydrophobic steroids in the roots inhibited a particular activity in the prostate gland. And that again is to do with extraction in different mediums. The tannins are analgesic, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, anti-cancer, inhibit nuclear kappa B. Is there anything else I want to say? No. Okay. Let's have a look. So these are some of the famous flavonoids, and I just wanted you to we're not going into deep chemistry, but I just wanted you to look at the shapes, because for me, looking at them, I can see that they probably bind to estrogen receptors. They've got steroid shapes in them. So that just gives you, they might interact with cholesterol, metabolism. You know, when I look at them, I just think, okay, these are the shapes. It's good to get used to the shapes of things. They are, the flavonoids in nettles have been used to inhibit myoglobin oxidation in raw meat. So it's been used traditionally as a preservative of meats, and in Turkish sausages, nettles added there, and it's the flavonoids that stop meat rotting. I thought that was very interesting. And interestingly, those same chemicals do the same in our own rotting flesh if we have gangrene and that kind of thing. So nettle flavonoids are antioxidant, and they induce apoptosis in so many cancer cell lines. It is just crazy. Obviously, this is in vitro, and they also are cytostatic. They stop they freeze the movement of cancer cells around the body and stop migration. And they also have a role in being preventative for Alzheimer's. Next slide, please. Okay, so the sterols are sort of fatty, oily substances, and oleanol is one, beta-sitosterol is one, stigmasterol are one, camphorol is one, and these are things you all have heard about in many things. They're often present in a lot of other medicinal substances and plants, such as olive oil. Oleanol is in olive oil, beta-sitosterol is in many other oily plants. And they're responsible for a lot of their anti-inflammatory, cholesterol balancing, and anti-cancer substances. And often when I offhand just say anti-cancer and antioxidant, it often means it will protect the cardiovascular system as well, and probably protect you from COVID as well, because they're all factors of inflammation that are in common. So the sterols are in the seeds and roots, and they contain omega fatty acids, linoleic acid, up to 40% in, and up to 40% in the mature leaf. Nettle seed oil, so you can actually buy an oil just from the seed, is primarily 70% linoleic acid, followed by oleic acid, and then 1.1% of beta-sitosterol. But the oil also contains tocopherols, which are vitamin E's, different types, gamma ones, alpha ones, and they work to prevent atherogenesis, so the formation of sclerotic plaques in the artery, and they reduce thrombogenicity, so the actual promotion of clots. They lower our cholesterolemic index, and they're used, the nettle seed extract is used in cosmetic and pharmaceutical products. Next slide, please. So beta-sitosterol, I just had to mention because it's going to be so relevant to when we talk about prostate glands. Similar to cholesterol, but unlike cholesterol, it doesn't convert to testosterone. It inhibits 5-alpha reductase, which we'll talk about more in the future. It's present in nuts, seeds, legumes, and that EVOO is extra virgin olive oil. It's present in moringa. It's present in some varieties of artemisias, which I didn't know, which doesn't surprise me because it's oily. It's present in chickpeas, in saw palmetto, ryegrass pollen, Pygeum africans, which is African prunes. And it's shown, you know, there are just so many studies if you look up beta-sitosterol, including studies for prostate cancer, lung cancer, stomach cancer, ovarian cancer, leukemia, and colon cancer. And what I find interesting about it is it acts in different ways. And it also, when a plant acts in a certain way in the body, it makes me question about the mechanisms of how the cancer works as well. And because it's also very hormonal, it makes me question the hormone actions in cancers, because we often think of breast cancer and prostate cancer as hormonal dominant cancers, but don't think of colon cancer, lung cancer as hormonal when they are. as well. I just wanted to add that in there, that actually the role of estrogen enhances metastases and cancer growth. It's important to know that. And that refers to kind of xenoestrogens in our environment. BS isn't bullshit, it's beta-sitosterol. I just was abbreviating it. Interferes with many signal pathways of cancer, including interfering the cell cycle, stimulating apoptosis, inhibiting proliferation, affecting the survival of cancer cells and the survival of healthy cells while people are having treatment, decreasing angiogenesis, suppressing metastases and inflammation. It also has a role in reducing fats that we don't want in our bodies, and that's very significant to diabetes. Next slide, please. Terpenes. Could you do the next slide in case I've got pictures of terpenes? I don't know if I did. Oh, no, I didn't. That's disappointing. Okay, can we go back? That's disappointing because it's nice to look at the structures of terpenes. They have a particular shape. Hold on, let me just see. Have I got notes particularly on terpenes? Okay, so the terpenes are extracted in fats and in tinctures, and they are and chlorophyll, some of the terpenes in there, and some of the yellow colored oils in there as well. I think it's really important that just generically, it's something we didn't do in our degrees, actually just look at chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is a sort of, it's a breath freshening constituent of plants. You know, after eating garlic, you might eat parsley because it's so rich in chlorophyll. You wouldn't eat nettles, fresh nettles, because it would burn your mouth. And it's the thing I said, you know, if it didn't have the trichomes on it, we would be eating it after eating garlic, and we would be making it with everything. It has a role in blood forming. It eradicates smells in the body, or reduces smells in the body, even from colostomy bag entrances, by actually consuming high chlorophyll. It's involved in wound healing. It inhibits acne, and it's something that's really useful when people are breastfeeding. When women are breastfeeding, it's very, very useful as a sort of not galactagogue, but to nourish the mum of everything that's been drained from her body. Terpenes are generally associated with anti-cancer, anti-rheumatic, skin protection, inhibition of atherosclerosis, and protecting from neurodegeneration. So it's actually a really proteinaceous plant, and the proteins that you get from the powder, like if you get the leaf and you powder it, it's really high. I think it's something like 40% protein. So you could use nettles as a protein powder that you make yourself. You could dry it out in a dehydrator and powder it in a NutriBullet or something and put it into capsules, or add it to things, or add it to smoothies, and have like a really hefty proteinaceous plant protein. What have we got here? The proteins, they're called mannose binding proteins, showed a lot of anti-HIV activity. And in fact, there's loads of studies on the proteins of urticodioca in HIV treatment. I'm not going to go into it here, but I just thought it's something that's really just important for you to know, that it actually has that property as well. UDA is how urticodioca, it's called UD, whatever the chemical is in a lot of the studies. So UDA is urticodioca agglutinin lectins, and that's present in the rhizomes, and it stimulates lymphocyte and interferon secretion, and it's antifungal, and it's actually sort of concentrated and sprayed on tobacco plants to get rid of fungus, but it's actually antifungal in us as well. Next page, please. Oh, actually, I just want to we don't have to change slide, but I also just wanted to say that the UDA, the urticodiotin gluten, also is antiviral because it's stimulation of T lymphocyte activity, and it blocks the action of HIV, cytomegalovirus, and respiratory syncytial virus and influenza A. Okay, so vitamins. So in the plants, it has vitamin A. So just a reminder, I mean, it's useful for a multitude of things, but vision, immunity, mucous membrane health, bone deposition of calcium, and maintenance of soft tissue. What's very significant with vitamin C as compared to a lot of other plants that contain similar chemicals is that it's got a significant amount of vitamin C in it, which helps the absorption of the iron in the plant, which why nettle is so good for iron deficiency anemia. It's sort of a specific for iron deficiency anemia. And on top, it's also antioxidant, immunostimulating, disease fighting. It's a protector. Nettle is a protector. It's our protector. It helps with tissue integrity and repair. I mean, this plant really is an amazing plant. It also, while inhibiting inflammatory processes that make clots happen in the body, if you have got thrombocytopenia or you're not clotting, it has vitamin K, which promotes healthy clotting. It contains vitamin B complex, which is very pertinent to people with lack of energy, and it helps with blood formation. It's an antioxidant with E, and also has an affinity vitamin E with lung and lung health, and vitamin E supplements are actually damaging to the lungs. And supplementation with vitamin E in studies years ago showed that it could actually contribute to lung cancer. But vitamin E in the plant form and its natural form has the opposite effect. So this is just sort of a reminder of why we're herbalists and why we use whole plants. And then these are kind of new agey terms, vitamin F and vitamin P, but that's omega fats. It's rich in omega fats, particularly in the seeds, and it's rich in flavonoids, which is vitamin P. It's good. It's a good way of learning, just of sort of mind mapping the plant. Okay, so minerals, it's very rich in the minerals that are which makes it sort of very good for making our bones, our hair. It contains iron. I've written a male sign, which is the sign for Mars, because Mars is the iron planet. It's very high in not Mars, it is high in Mars, but it's high in iron, which has the affinity for the planet Mars. It's high in magnesium, which we're all deficient in. It's high in phosphorus, potassium, sodium, selenium, which, you know, we're all deficient in, zinc, manganese, copper, cobalt, and may have these other trace minerals. Next slide, please. Okay, so actions. So let's guess which parts do this. So it's a vermifuge. Do you guys know what that means? Let me go open the chat. I want some interaction now. Okay, do you guys know what vermifuge is? Hello, I need some interaction.
I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, it is. It's to do with parasite and worms. It kills worms. And Culpeper talks about it killing worms in children. So can anyone guess which part kills the worms? Guess. It's leaves. It's leaves. It stimulates menses. That's the way we're not taught about that a lot. Culpeper talks about that as well. He was a dude. He talked about, you know, some good things, but it stimulates menses in people who have got like amenorrhea or oligomenorrhea. It's antioxidant. It's anti-inflammatory. It's anti-ulcer because it heals inflamed wounds and mucous membranes. It's antiviral. It's anti-cancer. It's antibacterial, it's antifungal, it's anti-androgenic, but we're talking about, you know, toxic androgens, not not sort of everyday androgens that you may need. It's insecticidal, it's analgesic, and it's galactagogic.
So sorry, would that be like excess androgens? So like somebody with PCOS?
Yes, definitely. Most definitely. Yes, most definitely, especially the root.
All right, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Next. Oh, let me see if there's anything else I wanted to put here. Yep, that's fine. Next slide, please. Well, how are we doing time-wise? Can someone tell me the time? Because I could literally talk, you know, for another 3 hours on nettles.
It's just gone 3 o'clock.
How? Okay, so, okay. I'll try and keep it within time. Okay. So indications. I've put springtime food and tonic, and that's my decree as a herbalist to all of you that I indicate this for you, but that's not what it's called. But I think it's something that we just, you know, prevention is better than cure. And really, I'm going to drink some more as I say it. We really, you know, we need to be looking at preventative medicine, and nettle is one such, and that includes eating the seeds and having the root. And if you've got someone in their 40s, it's the kind of remedy that I would say, look, have this. Let's, you know, 50% of men have got inflamed prostate glands, and you know, in different groups it's even higher. So it's like we really want to be promoting the older members of our family to be, you know, having phytonutrients to keep ourselves healthy. And it's something that we're not connected to the land in the city, and this is a way of connecting to nature. So indications are lower urinary tract symptoms. So that could be, okay, let's test you guys. Let's do some symptoms. What are urinary tract symptoms?
Frequent urination.
Yes, yes, polyuria is the technical name. Burning pain, dysuria, yes. What else? Burning pain, I think everyone's had that in their life, haven't they?
A struggle to urinate.
Do you?
No, I said a struggle to urinate might be a symptom.
The herbalist in me was about to just ask loads of questions.
No.
Okay, yes, yeah, so that's called hesitancy. Yeah, and that's something I think we've all had. I've certainly had burning urine in my life. I've had cystitis, and I've had burning pain as well. Very significant energetically. So yeah, difficulty. Any others?
An inability to like completely void.
Yes. Yes, and that could be that the words for that are like dribbling, and yeah, that thing of when you want to stop your wee and you yeah, it's good. Yeah, that's good. So yes, and it's urinary. It's used for urinary irrigation, and I don't know if any of you have been to the loo right now, but I'm surprised I haven't. But it actually flushes out. It flushes out your urinary system, and you know that sort of sense of flow that you have, and you know, like sometimes you can pee and you really pee, and it's really like ferocious. This is the kind of herb that will do that. And if you've got any gravel in your bladder, it will flush that through. And if you drink it regularly, it's indicated in prostate health. That's why I'm not saying it's indicated in prostate disease, which it is, but I want to say, I want you to get into the kind of habit of thinking of things as preventative. It's used for prostate conditions. It's used for nephritis, which is inflammation of the nephrons in the kidney. It's used for seasonal rhinitis for various reasons. It has an effect on the immune response, and also on sealing mucous membranes that are weeping. It's very drying, and as I said, my mouth's quite dry. It's used for iron deficiency anemia. If you're dealing with someone with anemia, you want to know the cause of the anemia. Is it B deficiency anemia? But it's used particularly for iron deficiency anemia, and sometimes one of the symptoms of that is hair loss. It's a herb that I use for people who've been through chemo and quite sort of like keen to get their hair back quite quickly, and all their hair hasn't come back in a luscious way. Nettles is one. Yeah, I mean, when someone's just asked, does it, so based on its behavior with the urinary system, does it make it supportive to the kidneys too? I would estimate that in some way it does, but there's probably more specific herbs. And I'd also say that possibly the root, this is my intuition, that the root probably does. because it's, and also I think that demulsion factor of it, and the way, actually I'm going to say it does, because the way it breaks down stones, the kidneys are like little babies, you know. If organs are compared to things like, you know, Christopher Headley always used to say that the liver is the teenager of the body and you can kick it around and it will regenerate. Kidneys are like the babies of the body, and you have to be very delicate and soft and give them demulsions and soft things, and things like even jagged kidney stones can shred the kidneys and scar them, and that's how people get scarring. A dear friend of mine passed away years ago from having jagged kidney stones, and they gave her kidney transplants. And I remember just being shocked as a young person, finding out that her kidneys were actually shredded by the stones that existed there. And had I even known about nettles then, you know, or other things that I know now, I might have even been able to help in some way. But yeah, I'm going to say yes, just thinking about it rather than just responding. Arthritis, it works in amazing ways. It stops crystal arthropathies, so the buildup of crystals in the joints. It flushes out toxins from the body, and it stops the bioaccumulation of toxicity in our body. So it flushes urinary sand and stones, and some of us don't even know we've got sand in the bottom of our bladders. Our bladders are big sort of stretchy bags, but you know, it needs to be flushed out. It's a huge bag that just sits there for years, stretching and in and out. It's a wonderful herb for diabetes, and it's actually hypoglycemic. It's used for weeping skin conditions. It's used for nosebleeds. It's there's studies on nettles for liver damage due to ischemic disease, where the vessels to the liver are damaged. It's hyperlipidemic. It's used in many countries, especially France, for mild acne. And I even saw, I was watching Rashika's, she's a radical herbalist. I was watching one of her herbal hours the other day, and someone mentioned it helped with bipolar, and I looked it up, and there was a study, and I couldn't believe it. I've never heard of nettles for bipolar, but I think when we do the energetics and we do the planetary herbs, it might make more sense how it could be useful. And at the very least, if someone's on any kind of psychiatric medication, and if they are you know, living with a long-term psychotic disorder, you can bet your bottom dollar their nutrition is probably impinged by that. So this is a nutritive herbs, and as I said at the beginning, nettles is, you know, when in doubt, give nettles, because it's gonna nourish that person. Good, that's really nice. Someone's just said that they're giving it very successfully to a teenager with depression, and yeah, I can see it as a very kind of nutritive, sort of fortifying herbs. It's described as fortifying you, and it's also described as giving you strength when you've got fear. Next slide, please. This one kind of annoys me, but I just thought it was fascinating. I came across this really big study where they were giving it to fish, farmed fish, and I hate factory farming. I hate the kind of what's the word? The sort of expendability of animal suffering for humans. I hate it. And that's not saying I think people shouldn't eat meat or anything like that. I hate the capitalist structure of intensive farming. But what was really fascinating is because of this kind of intensive method of treating animals in this way, they're often very sick, and they get sores, and they get low immunity, and nettle powders are used as medicine to fortify the animals, and animals have better, are sort of bulkier and have better meat, and they don't have as many diseases. Chickens produce more eggs, and they're actually even more happy. It gives the product more, I don't like calling animals product, but it gives the animals more nutrients. It's used for hematuria in cows. It's fed with malva to pigs. It's used for bone fractures in animals. It heals their wounds. When animals get internally injured, they use nettles. And in the farmed fish, it made the fish just, you know, more happy when they were dying. I mean, the study kind of blew my mind a bit. I shared it on one of my pages, but when you study a plant for like a couple of weeks, you learn so many random things when you're doing like your own kind of monograph. Next slide, please. Okay, studies. I've just got them here. So it's been used in desensitization for people with seasonal allergy. Again, I'm not going to go into too much of the detail just because we're on time constraints today. It also showed that it helps with elevated glycemic index and controlling normoglycemia in people with benign prostatic hyperplasia and diabetes. There are so many studies on nettles with benign prostatic hyperplasia, with urinary tract symptoms. It's antimicrobial, it's antifungus. Now, what does WEN stand for? Can I remember? I thought I would know that. It's to do with an extract. What is WEN? Aha. What's WEN? I'll have to get back to you on what I put WEN was. Let me see if I put it here. I'll get back to you. But basically the extract, it's a type of extract that I've abbreviated, and it was active against 9 microorganisms and was anti-ulcerogenic. And that will be because of the flavonoids as well. Okay, so it has cardiovascular effects, which is very pertinent to type 2 diabetes and type 1 diabetes, actually. But it reduces blood pressure in hypertension. It's vasorelaxing through nitrous oxide release. It lowers the LDL-HDL ratio. It inhibits platelet hyperactivity, and that's when platelets sort of stick to something and then start like all racing to stick on that area to make a clot. So, but it works in a way that isn't sort of blood thinning like other herbs. It's anti-diabetic. It actually inhibits glucose absorption, and that actually doesn't make sense to me, because then I thought, was the glucose going around the blood more? It increases insulin secretion so that, yeah, that's kind of weird. I need to look into that more. And it protects the beta cells in the pancreas, which secrete insulin. Let me just see if
Claudia, sorry, I think it inhibits absorption in the GIT.
Maybe that's what.
Yeah, that's how it makes sense to me.
Yes, that would make sense. Let me write that down so I can alter it. That's exactly what it will be. Thank you. Let me just see if I've missed anything out there. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Next slide, please. Oh, actually, can we go back? Okay, so what I'm just going to quickly go through some of the studies that I've looked at. It's been used in renal and liver disease as a blood forming agent. I don't know if I put indications further on, so I'm going to go through it now because it seems to be mixed up with some of this in my notes. It's been used as a metabolic enhancer, and I think that's in veterinary medicine, and that's noted in the 1800s in this country. It's used in cardiac disorders, arthritis, gout, rheumatism, insufficient lactation, congestive conditions, fluid accumulation, and as a styptic. So it seals wounds and bleeding wounds. It's a useful adjuvant for oral anti-diabetic drugs and reduces oxidative stress on iron-promoted oxidation of phospholipids, linoleic acid, and deoxyribose. It's a urinary irrigator for kidney gravel, prophylaxis for not getting kidney stones. The nettle seeds have been described as kidney food, going back to what was asked earlier, for kidney ailments, pains in the flanks, you know, when the kidney aspect. In Chinese medicine, it's used for male infertility, and it's often used with the leaf, seed, and root in Chinese medicine, and it reduces glomerular nephritis. It's used in combination with saw palmetto for prostate cancer. It's used for myalgia, and chemicals in it, including the histamine, the 5-HT, are indicated in muscle spasms. It's good for swollen breasts, and 1 ounce of nettle contains 280-ish milligrams of magnesium. It's a pregnancy tonic, and it can be eaten like a vegetable. It's used for seasonal allergies. It's antihistaminic. The freeze-dried extract shows that it's better with echinacea, and it's for allergies. It's used synergistically with ephedra, eyebright, golden seal, barberry, and it's an excellent lung astringent, as Culpeper would describe it. In fact, Culpeper said, an electuary with honey and sugar opens the pipes, and then he also talked about it sort of undoing the cold and dampness of winter that's left in the lungs. It's used for alopecia and for nutrient deficiency for people who are on medications where, you know, the meds are like anti-nutrients. It's used for osteoarthritis, and there have been studies with people with arthritis that with fish oil and vitamin E, people had a less need for analgesia. And 50 grams of the stewed leaves consumed daily reduced people's doses of diclofenac when they've got rheumatoid arthritis. Can we just move forward a few? Actually, let me just quickly look at where we're at with slides time-wise, so I just don't want to miss anything crucial. Where's indications? Okay, I'm going to finish off with the indications though. So we've got seasonal allergy, we've got desensitization, adrenal burnout. I hope you guys are taking notes here because I haven't actually written this in, I don't think. So the nettle seed is used for adrenal burnout. It's ideal for melancholic and semi-phlegmatic roots. Its fiery nature, this is of the seeds, is too much for people with prone to insomnia or palpitations. So if you eat the seeds a lot, it really it gives you a bit of like fire in your belly, gets you going, and it can exacerbate heat for conditions of heat. And I think that's actually telling me a bit about myself today, because I'm quite a fiery person and I'm drying up. My mouth is drying as I speak to you. My tongue feels a bit shriveling up. I definitely need moistening herbs, not drying herbs. It's a tea to take in late pregnancy to prepare for blood loss and promote milk. It's a galactagogue. Okay, planetary. Let me just move this so I can see. So if you ever learn any astro herbal medicine, astrology, alchemy, nettles is the archetypal male, you know, in that construct of binary sort of types. It's archetypal male, and it's ruled by Mars, which is sort of like a warrior, fiery character, and it's under the dominion of the sign Aries. Now, how this would relate to herbalists is it tells you a bit about the people that it would be good for. It tells you a bit about the nature of the plants, and it tells you a bit about the time to pick it, grow it, and use it, and the situations. The Martian aspects relates to also iron, the mineral iron, the metal iron. So we've got, so it's Earth Day is is Tuesday. It's like lunes is like Monday is the moon, Tuesday is Mars. And so a day that you might collect it is on a Tuesday in its Earth hour. I'm not even sure what its Earth hour is. I'll have to look it up. And I think it has 2 Earth hours in the day. I think, in fact, I do know it's ridiculous. It's like 5 a.m. in the morning, and then the other one is in the evening. So if you pick it on a Tuesday, and then if you want it, it's ruled by the star sign Aries, and Aries affects the has the affinity of the eyes, the face. Where else? I'm trying to think which parts of the body. It's the eyes and the face and another part of the body. So if you want it to go to that part of the body, you'll pick it when the moon is in Aries on a Tuesday in its Earth hour. And if you're into alchemy, you'll make the remedies around that time. It's the color associated with Mars is red. And I think the way that you could think of that in humans is if someone's got a flushed face, if they get very angry and red, if someone's got red hair, they might have a Martian Aries character, constitution. If you actually touch nettle, you'll get inflammation, which is rubor, and the redness of sort of inflammation. Martian characters are generally very fast, so it might be a remedy that you use to change something. If someone's stuck in a position that's not moving fast enough, nettles has got that energy of moving fast. I think this is my interpretation. It's drying. It's a herb of the summer when it's sort of in its element. It's in the summer, and it's the opposite of winter when it's in its element. I think of it as also quite a macho and angry herb in certain ways, and it's a herb I consider for people who are quite angry and sometimes macho. I was just looking up, I'm not really into astrology, believe it or not, but I was just looking up Aries characters, and it said they're reckless, romantic, competitive, not boring, like quite platonic. They're trailblazers. And yeah, is there anything to say? It's also called the fire of the garden, nettles, and that's to sort of represent its energetic of heating, of being used for hot conditions, and it's to do with its spiky, its trichomes, its stinging trichomes, and what's interesting, it's antipathetic in the body. So if you have fire, it actually dulls it in the body. So it's, as a herb, it's actually energetically quite cooling inside the body. And again, like I said, it's a protector and it provides a barrier. So you might even consider it in a situation of needing tannins in the body, but all plants with tannins have affinities to where they go to in the body. And you know, there might be preferable herbs in different situations. It helps to defy fear and doom, and it's used in banishing rituals for fast change. Okay, next slide. Okay, so in Chinese medicine, it's called Zun Ma. It's a yin tonic and it tastes sweet and salty. Do you guys know what sweet and salty things do in the body? Do you know anything about that? Let me go to the chat. Because that tells you a bit about its properties in the body. Yeah, nourishing. Any other words?
Tonic.
Pardon? Hello? It's like a seance. Is anyone out there? Drying? Yeah, I mean, I think aspects of it are drying, but the sweetness to me means it pushes through things, and the saltiness generally means it's full of minerals. If something's sweet, I mean, to me, it's interesting. It doesn't, I'm just trying to think about it. I think of the root much sweeter. But yeah, when something tastes sweet, it tends to be quite moistening, which I don't actually think this is. This is just the general of energetics of herbs, and obviously there's no hard and fast rules, and plants can have different different manifestations. And like I said, nettle's different due to the parts of it and also the different types of nettle that we have. But sweet generally means it's moistening, and salty usually means that it moves through things and it carries minerals with it. So in Chinese medicine, and also don't forget, when I talk about things like Ayurveda or Chinese, their terms of heating and cooling and energetics is different to the Western paradigms. So it's dry, nourishing, astringing, stabilizing. I think that's a really cool one. It's a stabilizing plant and dissolving, and that relates to the stones. And herbs that dispel wind dampness and body pain in Chinese medicine. Have I written about it here? I think I have. Don't really want to go too much into it because we're just time constrained. I don't actually taste the bitterness in it, but in Chinese medicine, it's considered bitter, much more than in Western medicine, and it has a lot more affinities in Chinese medicine for the liver. I don't know if it's because of the way it's used in prescription, or if it's to do with actually the nettle on the land, but it's mentioned a lot in Chinese medicine for liver issues. So let's, oh, here it is. I've written, so body pain responds to rheumatic pain, and it strengthens the lungs, used for TB, asthma, bronchitis. And in this country, it's a very traditional lung remedy for the end of winter when people have flus and sort of gunk and mucus from the end of winter. Next slide, please. Okay, so preparation and posology. Posology means dosing. This is going to be different for everybody, but basically, you know, you can use anything from 2 to 6 grams of unmute. I don't know how I got muted. And I'm not going to go through the doses too much. I've put them here. But what I think is more important in just generally talking about dosing and giving it is that the lipophilic extracts are more anti-inflammatory than alcohol ones, and you might want to use those for for certain conditions. Only the aqueous extracts seem to affect the binding of sex hormone of nettle extracts on sex hormone binding globulin on prostate cells, and Peter Holmes describes the fresh juice as the most effective preparation, then freeze dried. You can also make the juice and freeze it into ice cubes. Another thing I learned this week is that people smoke it for asthma, and the syrup and what was called in the past electrories were made for lung conditions. Let's have a 5-minute break, and then we're going to whiz through prostates. Yep. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
Good.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. We're nearly done. We've only got another sort of 20 minutes or something.
Are we muted?
No, but
You're not muted.
I'm not muted. No, it's okay. I accidentally muted you, Claudia, because I was trying to mute someone whose sound kept jumping on, but then it jumped back to you and muted you, and I couldn't unmute it. Checking everyone.
Okay, so it's pee break, and we'll get to prostates. Can you do next slides, Caro? Oh, okay, there's quite a bit left. Okay, we're gonna have to whiz through those. Okay, I'm just gonna go and relieve my bladder, and then we'll start again.
This one's really strong.
Shall I just start going into these ones quickly? So I just wanted you to have a look at nettles from around the world. So in India, there's a nettle called Urtica tuberosa, and it's got a tuberous root, and it's used for food. And I just thought that was quite interesting. And then in Ayurveda, Urtica dioica is used in medicine. Back, please. Sorry. Yeah, and as a medicine, for all the doshas, for all the constitutions, it's fine steamed. It's been used in India for 5,000 years. Okay, let's move on. I'm not going to go into Ayurveda too much because time-wise. In Mexico, it's used by limpiadores and sobadores, which are herbalists, for cleansing. And the nettle is beaten with basil and rue and different herbs to banish particular elements. What was quite interesting is when I was reading about nettles generally, that it's actually was used in as punishment in Ecuador. I don't know what the crimes were, I didn't look that up, but it was actually quite harrowing. I saw some footage of it and it was really distressing, of people like naked in cages being beaten and crying with nettles. And I thought that was quite interesting, that it's, you know, seen as a punishment. And also when I was searching nettle, I came across a really weird like a sexual kink site. I don't know how I got into it, but I was searching for nettles and I found a site where people are into beating each other's genitals with nettles, and I was like, oh my gosh, you know, the things you do when you're researching something. But I just thought I'd tell you about it because it was so kind of random. But there's like a whole kind of kink that people are into nettles. Next slide, please. This one I thought was quite interesting, and it's Urtica masaica, and Masai is referring to Maasai people, but it's used in Congo, Burundi, Rwanda, Kenya, Uganda, and it's very big. It's like taller than I am. It's used for healing, for diarrhea, stomachache, malaria, and for STIs. But what I thought was really interesting is that people grow it in areas to not let gorillas in. So it's used as a sort of protection. If you're in a village, they'll grow this kind of nettle around the side like a border, because the gorillas won't come, and other animals. I thought that was quite interesting. And then these nettles, I mean, these ones are absolutely shocking, like really shocking. And they give stings that feel like burning irons and make our kinds of urtica just feel kind of really mild. Some of the symptoms can go on for 6 months to a year. And some of them, they feel like you're being burnt with brandishing irons. And some of them have, like, you know, seriously horrendous side effects that can go on for the rest of your life. So it's like, you know, plants are very formidable. And if they don't want you to go near them, they will really let you know that. Next slide. Oh, I just thought I'd show you some urticaria, which is named after nettle. I think this urticaria is an allergy, but you can get similar things from being stung by nettle. And in homeopathy, Urtica urens is used for urticaria. And, you know, there's a tradition everywhere about nettle and dock leaves, but you can also use jewelweed. You can also use licorice for extreme nettle rashes. Next slide, please. Urtication is the beating with nettles, and it can be used for analgesia, for people that have got terrible arthritic pain, as a counter irritant. It can be used, it's also used in kind of religious flagellation ceremonies and as punishment. I'm not going to go into it more, but what I was going to say is that studies have shown that actually beating yourself with nettle does reduce the pain and inflammation of arthritis. And I personally think that the response of actually doing urtication will be different with different people. So it's not something I'd necessarily recommend. It's a bit like cold water swimming. I think some people it does amazing things for, but it's not good for certain constitutions. And I think urtication, beating yourself, is you've got to be of a constitution to benefit from that. Next slide, please. Okay, prostate gland. What time is it? Has anyone got the time on them?
Yeah, it is 20 to 4.
Wow. So really we should be finished, but we'll go through. If people need to leave, they need to leave. And we're just going to sort of do like a whistle stop of the prostate gland. So I'm going to read a lot of this out just so we get it done and I'm not waffling for too long. So a healthy urethra arises from the bladder and passes through the prostate. So please look at the diagram, and extends to the penis tip. Within the prostate, the urethra forks and branches from the seminal vesicles and makes the alkaline fluid which carries sperm. Before ejaculation, the prostate adds a viscous fluid. 70% of semen is made in the prostate to produce the semen. Healthy prostate secretions are a cocktail of enzymes, citric acid, even though it's overall alkaline, fructose, and zinc. So zinc's very pertinent to prostate health. The first release, this has got nothing to do with herbal medicine, but I just thought it was interesting, so I was going to tell you it. The first ejaculate in sperm in an orgasm contains prostaglandins, which dilate and dilate a closed cervix. Where is my other notes? I also just wanted to say that prostate means upright. It means one who stands before, and it means protection and guardian. I thought that was just really kind of an important thing to say. That's what the prostate gland means. And the 3 most common forms of prostate disease that herbalists will come across are prostatitis, benign prostatic hyperplasia, which means that it's not cancerous, but some parts of it can be precancerous, and prostate cancer. The prostate is partitioned into zones. In the peripheral zone is where most, not all, prostate cancers occur. The central zone and the transitional zone and the anterior fibromuscular zone. Benign prostatic hyperplasia tends to occur around the urethral zone, so you'll get dribbling symptoms, and the prostate cancer happens in the outer cortex zones. So when a digital rectal examination is done, that's often, someone will feel to see if it's smooth or rubbery, which is like prostate hyperplasia, or if it's stony and jagged, and that's more like indicating prostate cancer. Prostate-specific antigen is just one marker of possibly the presence of prostate cancer. Prostate disease is immensely traumatic for men, and as herbalists, we can support someone with prostate disease to lower symptoms, to support prostate health, to be a sort of a cushion and a safe space that's outside of the medical paradigm and the medical model that kind of objectifies you and doesn't make you part of your process of healing. So that's something, we can offer a lot as herbalists. Herbs and diet help a lot with prostate health. Urinary demulcents and antiseptics help with investigative procedures. Nervines help with the stress of having prostate disease. I have a strong preference for infusions, decoctions, and powders, and hydration is really key for anything to do with the urinary system. An interesting fact I learned is that animals do not get progressive prostate enlargement per se as humans do. And in this country, it's now considered, it's like normalization of ill health, is that it's actually considered normal to have an enlarged prostate gland at the age of 50 years old. I'd love, if I had more time, I'd love to do studies on different regions around the world and Indigenous people, and just looking at markers of prostate health. I'd be really fascinated. So symptoms of prostate issues can include urinary delay. And when I say urinary delay, I don't mean delay like, like sometimes if you're in the loo and someone's watching you or something and you can't pee, That's normal. Sometimes if you're in public, you might not be able to pee. That's not urinary delay. Sometimes if you hold your pee for a long time, it's hard to pee. And that's because you've kind of done something to obstruct that flow. But abnormal delay is like literally you go to pee and nothing comes out. I think we've probably all had that at some point in our life as well. Hesitancy means you want to go, but yeah, it doesn't come. Something called terminal dribbling is like, you know, that thing when you shut your pee off, but it carries on dribbling out. And any of those symptoms, if you ever come across that with any of your patients, I ask you, please monitor it and make sure they check it out, whatever it is, please, because these are the signs of something going on, and it needs to, it's an indication that, you know, you're along a process of something, you know, not healthy. Normally we produce about 60 mils of urine per hour. With prostatic disease, the amount a bladder can hold is reduced greatly, so you need to go to the loo more. Benign prostatic hyperplasia is a non-cancerous progressive, so it builds up. This is why I'm saying address it. As soon as you get symptoms, address it. It's a progressive enlargement of the prostate gland that affects approximately all men over the age of 50, 75% of men over the age of 60. And the symptoms include difficulties with urinating, an urge to urinate, more pain, actually less pain than prostatitis and prostate cancer. Frequent urination, especially at night, that's nocturia. Weak intermittent stream, feeling of incomplete emptying of the bladder. And what happens is you can actually have residual urine that stagnates in the bladder, which is why Nettles is so brilliant for irrigation of the bladder. And continual stagnation can cause kidney damage and repetitive infections. Benign adenomas are linked to the hormone called dihydrotestosterones, and one of the treatments of persistent prostate disease is actually having chemical castration or orchidectomies, removal of the testicles, and before drugs, testicles removed. And then DHT, which is implicated in prostate disease, is made from testosterone, which is converted by an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase. So this is very relevant to herbal remedies. And the drug that is used to prevent, that inhibits 5-alpha reductase is called finasteride, and a lot of the herbal studies are comparing herbs to finasteride. I also think that estrogen dominance isn't discussed enough in men, and this is very significant to all prostate disease. Next slide, just to see what I've done. Okay, we'll carry on. Okay, so prostatitis is inflammation of the prostate gland that can be caused by bacterial infections, or sometimes they don't know what it is, a bit like interstitial cystitis. I can't say it. Cystitis. The disease may affect men of any age and can happen whether the prostate is very large or small. And the symptoms are similar to those, the two benign prostatic hyperplasia, with an urgent increase in urgent frequency and difficulty emptying the bladder. It also may be accompanied by symptoms of infection such as chills, fever, and pain. And apparently it's really bad if you've got prostatitis to jog, because it makes symptoms a lot worse. It's linked to sexually transmitted infections. I think chlamydia is one of them. And we are going to then quickly go into prostate cancer, and then we'll whiz through nettles and prostate and herbs and prostate, and then we'll introduce our next session, and I'll try and go through it quite quickly. I'm sorry, it's just gone over time. Prostate cancer, can we stay on this one, on the other slide, please? Thank you. So prostate cancer is the second leading cause of cancer deaths amongst men. It's a significant issue with African men or men of African origin, and I would probably say probably non-white men as well. It kills more Black men and is often diagnosed with more advanced disease. Screening programs include PSA testing. However, early detection leads to more effective treatment. The majority of cases of prostate cancer are detected while it's still localized rather than metastasized, which means it's spread. When prostate cancer is detected early, the 5-year outcome is generally quite good. Prostate cancer screening is critical to early detection. And this is why I say to you guys, if anyone's got any symptoms, please check it out. Prostate cancer prostate cancer symptoms can include difficulty in urination, polyuria, the need to go, primarily at night, inability to urinate, weak and sporadic flow, painful urination, burning sensation during urination, sometimes blood in the urine, sometimes semen in the urine, pain in the back, the hips and local extremities. One thing I do really want to say about prostate, pelvis, women, all of us, is look, we're just sitting here. It's been 2 hours. I can feel, not that my brain and my attention is sort of going now because of the time, but I'm just sitting here and we're all just kind of stagnating. We're not moving. And our pelvis, the way we're sitting, is kind of locked off. So what I did want to say is moving is really important, and moving your waist around and pumping up and down. I seem a bit mad, but it's like, you know, this kind of stuff is really important for pelvic health. And the reason that sort of we have so many pelvic problems is because we're sedentary, and there's a lot of sort of blockage of chi flow, prana, all those kind of words, blocking of blood. And we have so much sort of prostate and breast cancer and that kind of stuff because these fatty tissues need perfusion, they need draining out, and it's something that our lifestyles don't actually promote. And for women, breast health means squeeze, move your breasts, pump them. I know it sounds absolutely bonkers, but like have breast massages. And I'm sure that kind of movement that gets circulation into the prostate is very important. So here we've got a slide at the top right of prostatitis, and those big kind of dark blobby bits are white blood cells moving into the prostate. And then the slide below is of early stage prostate cancer, and the big cells are mutated and there's no sort of proper architecture. And then I've just shown you how the prostate cancer can block off the urethra, and it can even sort of cause blood to come down because it's being eroded. Next slide, please. Okay, so we've talked about beta-sitosterol, and another chemical is scopoleptin, and these have been, I don't know why, I think something I put in here is not coming on the slide, but these are implicated in why Nettle works so well with prostate conditions, and it's all prostate conditions, by the way. Next slide, we're whizzing through. So I'm not going to go into nettle root so much because we've sort of gone over it, but it basically inhibits 5-alpha reductase, which stops the conversion, or inhibits the conversion of testosterone to dihydrotestosterone. That's like a rampant promoter of proliferation of cells. It also stops the binding of testosterone to the receptors on prostate cancer cells and prostate cells. So it inhibits prostate cancer. So I'm just going to go through like a whiz now, just of the prostate approaches. This is literally like a whistle-stop tour of prostates and herbs. So we've got extra virgin olive oil. It's something that I think everybody should have every day as a preventative for hormonal imbalance. Have a really high quality one that is organic. Saw palmetto treats and prevents prostate issues. It inhibits 5-alpha reductase 1 and 2, the binding of testosterone to androgen receptors, and it's often used in mixes with nettles. Lycopene is used as a supplement. This is the reason why we need to eat carotenoid rich foods. It slows down the risk factors for prostate issues. Zinc is really important for prostate health per se. It's important for immunity. It also inhibits prolactin and alpha reductase. What I haven't mentioned on this is vitamin D. The prostate gland has vitamin D receptors, and vitamin D is very important to maintain prostate health. We've got rye pollen extracts, and they're particularly useful after surgery for prostate treatment and for biopsies. It reduces the discomfort after biopsies. Something that's never talked about a lot is the kind of mechanistic action of having tests or procedures that happen with people with different diseases, but the actual experience of having biopsies and the experience of going through the system is not textbook. It's very traumatic. And as I said, as herbalists, it's something we can help with mentally, even spiritually and herbally. It's something we can really help with. Pygeum africans is African plum, and it lowers the noxuria and urinary tract symptoms. Other sort of health promoters for the prostate gland is hibiscus and Chinese cinnamon, which is shown to notably shrink prostate size. Next slide. This I just put here for you guys to have because it's of a study that's on nettle and prostate cancer, and it's just fascinating. It's on not prostate cancer, on many cancers, on I think endometrial, colon, gastric, cervical, epithelial cancers per se, and it's just an overview, and it's just a very good study. And I just thought, you know, it gives you so much information. I shared it. It's one that's worthy of sharing. Next slide. This was an advert that I saw that's for a product. I can't remember the name of the product, but I just thought it's a nice way of learning the plant. So support for seasonal conditions. It's actually, okay, so it's got the root. So it says root for seasonal conditions, itching and sneezing, root for prostate, enlarged prostate glands. So the symptoms of that. Extract, I think that's obviously extracting the polysaccharides. So it's the leaf. Bleeding conditions and digestive tract, and joint health. And I guess that's the leaf. So I just thought that was a nice way of remembering it. I wanted to share a few remedies before we finish up today. So Christopher Headley and Nonshaw made a mix for anemia, and here it is. I started making it this week, and what's interesting, it's nettles, apricots, bitter orange peel, and red wine. And I dried out the orange peel in the winter. Actually, it was like Seville oranges, and I dried out the peel, so I thought I'll use it up for this. And what's interesting is I'd filled it all up to here, and it was covered. And look, the apricots have like doubled in size, so they're absolutely huge. But all of the things in here are really good for anemia. The nettles, I put loads in. It's quite a big jar. And I will strain it in 2 weeks. And then after that, I will add some brandy to it and blackstrap molasses. That's my take on it. And a teaspoon a day for this one that I'm making with my take on it will be used for anemia. Andrew Pengelly, the guy that wrote that book on chemical constituents of plants, decocts the root in milk for prostate glands, which is quite interesting. I don't know if they're animal milks or nut milks, but if I was using milk, I'd use an A2 milk for someone with prostate disease. We have the nettle, this is the nettle vinegar. I'm actually going to use it for salads, and I might even use it for roasting some beetroots or something. But hair tonics are made with vinegars and decoctions. And what they do is you simmer the vinegar in nettle, birch, rosemary, whatever the herb is, but it's to make a lustrous hair. And you can also make ointments with calendula, burdock, figwort, and gotu-kola for skin conditions that don't heal very well. Next slide, please. This is just there for you. I just wanted to give you a few remedies, prescriptions. Next slide, please. Okay, so can you guys, before we end, can you tell me about all of these things? Can you type in the chat, tell me its morphology and color? Are you all awake? Are you with me?
Heart-shaped.
Yes. Its color?
Green.
Yes. So what does that relate to?
Chlorophyll.
Yes. Yes, heart-shaped, male and female. Yes, yellow roots, love it. Botany, tell me something about the botany. It doesn't have to be technical. Cordate, serrated, excellent. Square stems, excellent.
Trichomes. Oh, we lost the slides.
Where's the slides?
You know what? It's fine. Go to the thing because I've got it. So go to the screen. So if anyone wants to be seen, they can before we close up.
Slides screen sharing.
Yeah, just stop screen sharing and I'll go through them. I've got them all here. If anyone wants to open up, I'd love to see you because it's really weird talking to, hello. It's really weird just talking to yes, draws out toxins. Location.
Everywhere.
Yeah, let's be a bit more specific.
Dioecious.
What does that mean, gendered?
I can't. Dioecious? I can't spell that.
Yeah, I like that word. Okay, organoleptic. What's it taste like?
Grassy.
Yeah, this is something, by the way, that you should be able to say about all the herbs you ever use. Yeah, so I want you to get into having this relationship. You know its taste, you know its character, you know you've got a relationship with it. It's really important. Sensory. So silky demulsion on the tongue. What's it like if you walk on it?
Painful.
Yeah, painful. Does anyone like it?
Yeah, I like it.
What, getting stung?
I do, yeah, I'm stung at the moment, you know what I mean? And I do like it, yeah.
I met a kid the other day that was sort of in the park going, oh, like rubbing their hands and feeling. And I was just like, oh my God. But for me, I'm really a bit sensitive. I'm a wallflower. It's like
I've used it on long runs. I used to do a lot of marathon running and then run afterwards through the nettles.
You hit yourself with it?
No, run through your leg. So it would kill the pain in your legs.
Constituents, say the constituents.
Tannins.
Yes.
Polyphenols.
Yes. Other people, come on.
Flavonoids, terpenes.
Yeah, terpenes is a good one.
It's got has it got polysaccharides?
Yes, polysaccharides. There's one more that you've missed that I really want in there. Steroids.
Triterpenes.
The fatty acids are really, really important, especially for the prostate. We want to be, we want to know that they're
beta-cytosterol.
Yeah.
No, I missed that. So crucial. I don't know how I manage. I knew I'd missed something. It is. Yeah. The seeds are a tonic for the thyroid gland. They're a tonic for the gonads. They're a tonic for the adrenal cortex. I had to think about the name of the adrenals then. That's a crucial thing. How could I miss that out? 2 hours and not mention the bye-bye Colette. Yeah, they're a tonic for those glands. Energetics.
It's a protective herb.
Yes. Yes, and used for people who do protecting. Affinities of the body.
Face and eyes.
Yeah, face and eyes for the Aries. Gonads and glands for the seeds. Prostates and urinary tract for probably the whole plant, to be honest. And in Chinese medicine, they use the whole plant for prostates. And what's unique about it? you've got cleavers, that's got a lot of chlorophyll, you've got chickweed that's got a lot of chlorophyll. What's unique about nettles as opposed to those for springtime tonics? Can anyone think of anything? It could be anything. What makes nettle unique?
The histamine, the what do you call it? The stinging bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that makes it very unique. It's very fiery, it changes directions, it stings you, it's protective, and it's got high vitamin C. That's one of its unique things for springtime tonics that's really good for anemia and blood building. Do you all get a feeling for nettles?
Oh, absolutely.
Good. Then I've done my job.
Even ahead of the session, I've always had a.
So next session in 2 weeks, what do we want to do? Now, the options are we meet with Adriano and do a case study with him, and I can just do a case study, like just do a consultation, and you guys can just listen to it and see just the style of herbalist that I am. Or we can just talk about prostate disease, or not. How do you feel about that?
I quite like the first option. I think it would be nice to see your style of practice as opposed to what we get to experience currently. Yeah. So
Okay,
the case study works for me.
So that would probably be a double session in terms of we'd do the case study and then the week after we'd discuss it. And then in return for Adriano doing that with us, we could then get him the remedy. How does that sound?
I think that sounds excellent, yeah.
Okay, so if we do that, can we make sure that it's just us in the room and it's kind of like, you know, the clinical respect, not that we're, you know, clinical as in white coats, but as in just people aren't in and out and we're not ironing or doing anything on that day, because it's about actually, you know, giving a proper service. And basically, I don't know everything. I mean, Adriano is a good friend of mine, but I don't actually know, you know, how he ended up at the hospital or how anything. I don't know the intimate story. When you're a herbalist and you get to know someone, you get to know intimate details of their medical story, part of their life story. So we want to create a space that's safe and nourishing and healing. So, okay, should we do that in 2 weeks? And we'll say we'll do it for, you know, it'll probably be about a similar time as today if it's the first consultation.
2 weeks time, so is that the 8th?
Yeah, I mean, day-wise, that
That would be 3 days.
yeah. And then in the meanwhile as well, let's choose a herb for the session after that so I can start writing it. Are there any herbs anyone wants to learn?
You were thinking about some more springtime herbs last time. I'm happy to just go with any.
So that's in a month's time.
Or you could get a more Maytime herb if it's after that.
Maytime herb. I'm trying to think what will be good then. We could do, let me think.
Can't work this way.
There's so many, it's hard to choose, isn't it?
What about a tree flower? Elder.
Oh.
That would be probably further on in the year. I think. It won't be ready for May, I don't think. Depending on what our weather's like. I mean, I don't know if you've seen elders right now, but they're looking a bit scraggy still. Hawthorn would be lovely, but will it be around? I thought of hawthorn and chickweed. I mean, I tell you what, I'll start preparing for hawthorn. We're going to do next week, so let's decide next week, and I'll start preparing for hawthorn and chickweed. How about that?
Oh, should we do the 8th or shall we do the 15th with Adriano?
Oh, let me get my diary. Adriano, are you there?
I'm not sure if he's still here actually.
It was long. Yeah, he may have gone. Okay. I mean, The other thing is I need to check that he's all right to do it because he's not well. So I need to have something prepared just in case it doesn't happen. Let me get my diary. Hold on one sec. Let's get my diary. How was that, by the way, everybody? Was it all right?
I enjoyed it.
It was really good, really enjoyable.
Good.
Very insightful.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
I enjoyed it.
So what date are we on? Let's have a look. So are we looking at the week of, what day did you say?
How about the 15th of April, if we want to do in 2 weeks' time, or I don't know about the 8th.
The 15th works for me, 8th doesn't. So
Okay.
15th does.
15th.
Yeah, it works for me.
Do you normally do a 1 hour consultation?
For the first time, 2 hours, as you'll see why.
Mhm.
And I usually do, before I see anyone, I also have a diet. I like to have a diet diary of 3 to 4 days, or a consumption diary. So hopefully that, you know, if that happens, I'll get that to you before. But it's very important to have that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. So see you in 2 weeks. And
Thank you.
and I'll think about a herb to do that we can all get hold of for May as well. And if there's any subjects you want to do, like you've got coming up, let me know as well for clinical exams or whatever. And I don't know what's happening with lockdown and things, but if any of you want to do practice, like mass practice with examination and stuff, we can do that as well. Yeah. Okay. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much, Claudia. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.